Vietnam had always felt like a distant name on the map, something exotic, mysterious, and a little overwhelming. I didn't know much about it, and that's exactly why I wanted to come, to feel something completely new. Knowing I might get lost in the unfamiliar, I decided to seek some help. Friends who had traveled here spoke warmly about a company called Sun Getaways Travel, people who didn't just organize trips, but crafted real experiences. So here I was, stepping off the plane into a humid embrace of air thick with possibilities. Among the crowd, I spotted it, a sign with my name and a wide, welcoming smile. In that moment, Vietnam didn't feel foreign anymore. It felt like a beginning. The moment I left the airport, everything changed. Scooters zipped past in every direction. Wires tangled above the streets like abstract art. There were people everywhere, walking, selling, laughing, shouting. It was noisy. It was chaotic. It was alive. I leaned against the car window, watching it all unfold like a movie I didn't understand yet, but couldn't stop watching. Vendors pushed carts of fruit. Tiny stools lined the sidewalks, filled with people drinking tea and talking fast. Vietnamese letters danced across glowing shop signs. Beautiful, unfamiliar, magnetic. I was overwhelmed, but not in a bad way, in the best possible way. When the car finally stopped in the heart of the old quarter, I didn't get out right away. I just sat there for a moment, smiling. This was going to be different, and I was ready for it. I woke up in Hanoi on my first morning, feeling a mix of confusion and wonder. It was early, but the city was already wide awake, like it never really slept. I didn't have a plan, just one goal, to follow my stomach. And in Vietnam, that's a very, very good idea. I thought I knew Vietnamese food. I'd had pho before, at restaurants back home. But the first spoonful I had in Hanoi, it was like discovering a word I thought I understood, but had never truly heard spoken. The broth was rich, deep, warm, the herbs fresh. The street around me was buzzing with motorbikes and vendors yelling, but my world was completely inside that bowl. Then came the food stress. I looked up and realized I wasn't even scratching the surface. Bun cha, bang quan, cha ka, nem ran. I wanted to try everything, and I didn't want to miss anything. One meal in, and I was already overwhelmed. Not by the noise, not by the heat, but by how much there was to taste and how little time I had. Later that morning, I found a small cafe tucked behind a yellow wall. I ordered what everyone said I had to try, egg coffee. It came in a little cup sitting in a bowl of hot water. It looked like dessert. It smelled like breakfast. And when I took the first sip, I just closed my eyes. It was rich, sweet, bitter, and velvety, like liquid tiramisu. I didn't expect to fall in love with a drink that has raw egg in it. But here I was, considering a second cup. That's Hanoi for you. It surprises you, quietly and then all at once. After breakfast, I decided to walk. No destination, just steps, guided by the rhythm of Hanoi. The streets eventually led me to a lake, serene in the middle of all the chaos. Hoan Kiem Lake. People jogging, old men practicing slow, graceful movements, children feeding turtles at the edge of the water. It was a different heartbeat here, softer, slower, and somehow it made the city feel even more alive. Later, I wandered into the Temple of Literature, a place older than my own country. Stone turtles carried ancient names on their backs. The courtyards whispered stories of scholars and kings. I realized then, Hanoi isn't just a city you see, it's a city you listen to. Leaving Hanoi was like leaving a dream halfway through. The further we drove, the taller the mountains grew, and the air turned crisp and thin. Somewhere along the way, the road stopped feeling like a road. It became a thin ribbon clinging to cliffs, diving into clouds, curling around the spines of giant mountains. I rode on the back of a motorbike, hanging on, grinning like a kid. Every turn revealed something new. A valley blanketed in mist, rice terraces stacked like stairways to the sky. Sometimes we passed children waving from the roadside, sometimes a herd of goats blocking the way, and sometimes just silence, so big and pure it almost swallowed us whole. This wasn't just Vietnam anymore. This was the edge of the world. We rode for hours until the road unraveled into a valley, and there life gathered like water finding its source. It was market day. The colors hit me first, bright reds, deep blues, embroidered greens, woven into dresses, headscarves, vests. Whole families had walked for miles, carrying their world in baskets on their backs. It wasn't just a place to buy and sell. It was where stories were swapped, hands were shaken, Babies were shown off, and news traveled faster than the river. I shared a simple meal with an old woman selling herbs. We didn't speak the same language, but we understood each other through smiles, gestures, and the warmth in her eyes. In the middle of towering mountains and endless stone, I found something more powerful than any landscape. I found connection. If Ha Giang had shaken me awake, Ninh Binh was a whisper that asked me to slow down. I found myself drifting along a quiet river, the oar dipping into jade-colored water, moving us without a sound. Limestone cliffs rose straight out of the water, draped in vines, standing like ancient guardians. Above us, the sky was endless. Around us, only the soft splash of water and the occasional bird call. Later that day, I decided to climb. The steps of Hang Mua wound upward like a stone dragon, each one a small challenge in the midday heat. My legs burned. My shirt clung to me. I questioned my choices around step 200. But when I reached the top, everything fell away. Golden rice fields stretched to the horizon. Rivers shimmered like silk threads through the land, and the limestone mountains stood still, ancient, eternal. I didn't say anything. I just stood there, breathing in a view that felt too big to fit inside me. Some journeys aren't about moving forward. They're about standing still and letting the world move through you. Day 7 in Vietnam. After rivers and rice fields in Ninh Binh, boarded a boat for a different kind of journey across the legendary waters of Halong Bay. I had seen pictures before. I thought I knew what to expect. I didn't. Sailing through Halong was like drifting through another world. Limestone towers rising from emerald waters, their shapes carved by centuries of wind, rain, and time. The boat moved slowly, and so did I. Leaning over the railing, breathing in the salt, the mist, watching eagles circle and fishing boats glide by. There was a silence here. But it wasn't empty. It was heavy with legends, forgotten dreams, and the deep memory of the earth itself. Halong wasn't just beautiful, it felt eternal. That afternoon, we lowered kayaks into the still waters. Paddling between limestone cliffs, I felt tiny, like a traveler inside a forgotten painting. We slid into caves so low I had to duck my head. Inside, the world turned to shadows and echoes. Outside again, the bay stretched endlessly, a mirror catching the sky, the cliffs, the quiet. That night, we anchored in a hidden cove. On the top deck of the boat, under 1,000,000 stars, the world felt vast and intimate at the same time. Day 7 ended not with noise, but with the soft breathing of the sea and the sense that something inside me had shifted. Day 9 in Vietnam. From above, Hoi An looked like a dream woven in gold. Rows of yellow houses, red-tiled roofs, and winding alleys glowing under the late afternoon sun. As the plane of my eyes lowered, the city rose up to meet me. I wandered through the streets, the walls weathered and warm, the air thick with the scent of incense and sweet soup. The old town wasn't loud. It spoke in whispers, the clink of tailors' scissors, the flutter of lanterns, the quiet laughter of strangers becoming friends. As night fell, the river came alive. Lanterns floated like stars falling from the sky, carried gently by the current. I knelt by the water, placing my own small light among them, a tiny hope drifting into the dark, into the unknown. I didn't make a wish, not because I didn't believe in magic, but because in that moment, I had everything I needed. Day 10 in Vietnam. The sun rose soft and golden over Hoi An. I left my hotel with no destination in mind, just the intention to walk. The old town in the morning felt different, quieter, cooler, kinder. Locals sweeping storefronts, a vendor steaming buns on a bicycle cart, children riding to school in uniforms too big for them. I walked slowly. There was no need to rush here. Hoi An has its own rhythm, and I was starting to hear it. By afternoon, I traded cobblestones for coconut groves. I climbed into a round bamboo boat and was spun into laughter by a boatman with far too much energy. We floated past palms, past fishermen tossing nets, past kids waving and dogs barking from the shore. There was no museum, no monument. But in that muddy water and sunlight, I found something just as lasting. A moment I didn't want to end. Day 11 in Vietnam. I arrived in Hue under soft gray skies, and somehow it felt right. The moment I passed through the gates of the Imperial City, the noise of the outside world seemed to fall away. Red walls, stone paths, carvings faded by time, but still standing. This place didn't shout like the cities before. It whispered in creaking wood, moss-covered tiles, and stories half forgotten. I walked slowly through the courtyards, imagining footsteps that came before mine. Kings, queens, poets, guards. Hugh didn't try to impress. It simply existed. And in that stillness, it moved something in me. That evening, Hue changed again. The courtyards turned to shadows, the lanterns lit, and music began to rise. Not loud, but with presence. I sat beneath a soft canopy, listening to notes I didn't understand, but somehow felt. This was court music, once played for emperors, now floating through the night for travelers like me. Each instrument spoke differently. Each pause said more than the sound itself. There was no need for translation. Beauty, it turns out, speaks its own language. Day 11 ended not in noise or movement, but in stillness, wrapped in the music of a kingdom long gone, but never forgotten. Day 12 in Vietnam. The moment I landed in Ho Chi Minh City, it felt like stepping onto another planet. Neon lights, endless motorbikes weaving through traffic, billboards flashing stories I couldn't read but somehow understood. Here, the air didn't whisper, it buzzed. I found myself walking along Nguyen Huy Walking Street, surrounded by music, chatter, laughter. The city didn't sleep. It pulsed with dreams, with ambition, with life moving faster than I could catch. And somehow, in the middle of all that noise, I felt more awake than ever. Day 13 in Vietnam. Before the sun had fully risen, I was drifting through a floating market in the Mekong Delta, a place where mornings begin on water. Dozens of boats swayed and bumped into one another, each selling something: pineapples, noodles, coffee, smiles. A woman pulled up beside us and asked no questions. She handed me a steaming bowl of breakfast, and in that moment, I felt like I belonged. We sat together, locals and strangers, on wooden benches over muddy water, slurping noodles while the world around us hummed away. This wasn't just a meal, it was a memory, served hot in a place where everything floats except for the feeling of connection. Still day 13. After rivers and floating markets, I boarded one last flight to Phu Quoc Island. By the time my feet sank in the warm sand, I felt the weight of the journey behind me and the wide open horizon ahead. The sea was calm. The sun hung low and golden. I didn't rush to do anything. No schedule, no expectations. Just a simple walk along the shoreline, the waves washing away everything that didn't matter. After so many cities, mountains, rivers, and roads, this was the pause I didn't know I needed. Day 14. My last night in Vietnam. We gathered around a table in the sand, a few fellow travelers, a local guide, and me. There was grilled fish, cold beer, the sound of waves, and laughter that needed no translation. We didn't know each other before this journey, and maybe we wouldn't see each other again. But tonight, none of that mattered. We raised our glasses under the stars to the country that brought us together. It wasn't just a meal, it felt like a quiet celebration of the places we'd seen and the people we'd become. The next morning, I sat alone on the beach. No camera, no phone, just the waves and a heart that felt full. 2 weeks ago, I landed in a country I barely knew. Now it feels like a part of me. The noise, the silence, the flavors, the faces, Vietnam gave me all of it. I came here for a trip, but I'm leaving with something more. Not just photos, not just memories, but a story I'll keep telling for the rest of my life.